love to travel, but what is the fastest way of traveling? Is it a bike? Is it by feet? Is it a car? A train? Actually, all those answers are wrong. It happens to be an airplane. Early inventors wanted to see how this was really possible. They went through plenty of prototypes and started to realize that their ideas just weren't working. They started to bring in inspiration from other outlooks. The one that they landed on was nature. They started to look at birds because they were able to notice that they were able to fly through the air without any problem. The first one to ever think about strapping on wings to a human and trying to fix them was this guy. He thought that you could find a way to create wings that you can strap onto yourself to be able to fly through the air. However, his invention was not successful, and he started to give up on his idea. It wasn't until Sir George Cayley created, designed, built, and test-flew the first pair of fixed-wing machines. We will explore the STEM concepts that went into making this invention that now everybody uses to get far distances in the fastest amount of time.
Every day, your life is affected by the invention of the airplane. All of the basic principles of the modern airplane can be linked to the Wright brothers in some way. The airplane is a system of mechanisms that work together to answer all of the questions about control, propulsion, structures, and aerodynamics. The wing warping mechanism can be linked to the wings of a bird, just like the pulleys and cables in scientific terms. In relation to trade and travel, the food we eat, the clothes we wear, and the places we visit are all possible because of aviation. Not only are we able to travel and trade because of aviation, but we've also been able to incorporate our military and defense system. The United States Air Force uses aviation in relation to STEM in ways like drones, fighter pilots, and airplanes.
Upon the invention of the airplane, there was a bunch of engineering that had to be taken for the discovery. With the discovery of the wing shape, the wing size, the axis controls, the flight systems, the propellers, there was a bunch of trial and error that had to be taken forth in order to make the airplane actually work. With the wing size only starting at 5 feet, the Wright brothers really had to figure out what type of system would actually make an airplane fly. According to NASA, the Wright brothers were actually obsessed with flying kites, and the way that they used to do their flight testing is still how engineers today do wind tunnels and flight testing today to work on problems that happen in the airplanes. Because Kitty Hawk was windy enough to fly kite, that was the birthplace of the Wright brothers' invention of the airplane. The Wright brothers, upon their flight, they noticed that the airplane has 3 axes. They have the roll, which moves the plane like this, the pitch, which makes the airplane go like this, and the yaw, which makes the airplane go like this. And the control of the airplane was actually made only on the pilot itself, and that was really hard. So today they're still trying to tweak how the airplane is made with NASA Quest. The invention of the airplane took a bunch of trial and error, and it wasn't until 1901 when the Wright brothers finally made the invention of the wind tunnel, which included the fan, straightener, and lift balance in order for the Wright brothers to accurately determine the lift and the drag of the flight so it could be more controlled. In 1903, the airfoil model was finally created by the Wright brothers, and the invention of the airplane was born. Today, NASA researcher engineers are still using more new modern models, and they do this at the Glenn Research Center. Today, even as students, we could see what it was like for the Wright brothers to make an airplane of their own. With the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, they have created a website so we could see what it's like to make our own airplane with the interactive system.
Okay, so we're going to focus on two principles, which is going to be the airplane's forces and Bernoulli's principle. The airplane forces consist of 4 components, which is going to be the thrust, the drag, the lift, and the weight. The thrust, whether it's caused by a jet engine or propeller, it's basically an aerodynamic force that pushes or pulls the airplane through space. Now the opposite force is going to be drag, which is basically friction. It resists the motion of a moving object. In order for flight to take place, the thrust needs to be either equal or greater than the drag. If the drag for some reason is actually greater than the thrust, then the plane will slow down. And if the thrust is greater than the drag, then the plane will speed up.
So the wing of the airplane has a bump, and it's actually tilted so the air moving above the wing flows faster than the one underneath. Now, when air flows over an object and encounters an obstacle, this makes the air speed up. And when the air speeds up, that means that there's less pressure, meaning that faster moving air exerts less pressure than slower moving air. This is what causes an upward lift, called the Bernoulli's principle.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about weight and lift. Lift is what basically keeps the airplane in the air. And this is accomplished through the use of the wing, which is also called airfoil. Just like drag, lift can only occur or it can only exist in the presence of moving fluid. Now, the fluid can either be moving and the object is still, or the object can be moving and the fluid can be still. But basically the force occurs when a moving fluid is deflected by a solid object. In this case, the wing splits the air in 2 directions, which is either above the wing or below the wing. So basically the Bernoulli's principle is saying that air flowing through a curved surface flows faster than air flowing through a straight surface. And the faster the air, the less pressure there is.
Along with science, technology, and engineering, math has a great deal to do with planes. Pilots need to know trigonometry, calculus, algebra, and a great deal of geometry. Just cutting out a piece of steel or plane can take up to days, and if it's not done correctly, the plane won't fly and it won't be successful. There are many scenarios in which pilots and engineers need math for the flights to be successful in planes. For wingspan, you need to have the correct measurements so the plane can take off correctly. For fuel requirements for the speed, for the flight, you need to have the correct formulas and the correct math for everything to go according to as planned. And even in the plane design, you need everything to be measured correctly. We're going to look at some of the formulas that go into plane and plane travel. So now we're going to look at the flight time and the formula to solve that. So flight is time equals distance over speed. So if you're traveling 50 kilometers, then you're gonna have to find the speed to that, which is, let's just say your speed is 45 miles per second. So then what you're gonna do is you're gonna, if this is over that, but you're gonna also multiply that by 1,000. So your answer is going to be 1111.11, and you have to convert that to minutes. So you're going to multiply that by 60, and what you're going to get is 18.5 minutes. So that's how fast your flight would be. Right now we're going to be looking at speed and the speed of the plane. So there's a lot of aspects that just go into speed. It's not just one speed. So we have to look at the ground speed, and that is VG, and VG is equal to VA plus VW, which is air speed, and wind speed, and that equals ground speed. So we're going to look at the fuel requirements. So to figure out the fuel requirements, we're going to look at the formula, which is fuel consumed equals fuel consumed rate multiplied by the time you're in the air. So if the fuel consumed rate, and we're assuming is 600 liters per hour, and you've been in the air for 5.3 hours, you're going to multiply that. Hours takes off at hours, and the answer is 3,200 liters. And that is how much you find the fuel consumed.